Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen, life coach Tom Wells, and our Doctor of Thinkology, Alyx King, here on this Friday, February the 1st, 2019. It is 8 a.m. in New York, 5 a.m. in Los Angeles, 1 p.m. in London. Sydney, Australia is at midnight, but wherever you are in the world, thank you for tuning in for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And I can tell my co-hosts are happy today because even though I have to go through that process every morning of setting everything up and hitting all the buttons, it's not an easy thing. It takes a little time. They just sit there and smile and laugh and make jokes. So that's how I know they're in a good mood. They're in a good place. That's great. How you guys doing? Tom, what's happening?
I'm just trying to figure out some questions for today because.
Oh, that's right. We have to do questions. Know. Yeah. We also encourage our listeners to questions. Yeah, right.
Huh?
We also encourage our live stream listeners to come up with questions too. But
of course, yeah.
But we
my
also
questions
come up with
are
our
just second to my live listeners.
Absolutely,
our live listeners. Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of what we've been doing lately is coming up with our own questions just in case there's a dearth of questions. And I have to say we've been coming up with good ones. I mean, Alyx, you've been really putting some effort in on those. I know in particular Tom has as well. And it's paid off because when I look at the episode later on, after we're done to record it, not just record it, but to edit it and then post it online, I find out, wow, we came up with some really darn good questions. So, I mean, I presume you've been doing your homework too.
Always.
Who, me?
Alyx.
Yeah, you.
No, I've been in bed trying to figure out if I'm warm or cold, because that's what I've been doing.
Oh. Well, that's not terribly surprising, I have to admit, because we're in the middle of a major cold spell. Very, very cold. I don't know about you, Alyx, but neither one of us have gone out of the house in the last couple of days because it's just too darn cold outside.
Nope.
Wow.
Didn't move.
Yeah. I went out yesterday.
You
I
did?
had on a down jacket and 2 other layers, and it was 45 degrees. Yeah, it was
45?
Cold.
Whoa.
That's warm. What are you talking about?
We're talking
you
sub-zero.
That's almost 50 degrees. That's bad warm.
I know.
We were down in the ones and
I know.
Yesterday we were at -7 here. -7. Whew.
Wow.
Yeah. That gets you noticed from your top of your head down to your toes. It's like, oh yeah, it's cold. It's cold. And the cat, of course, wants to go outside.
I was talking to my friend in Minnesota last night, and her wind chill factor was -54.
Oh
wow!
Oh yeah, that's
with wind chill. Yeah.
That wind chill
cool.
gets you every time.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
She lives in a log cabin and has to go out to an outhouse in order to.
Oh no!
Yeah, do her thing.
I have a friend like that. He lives in Alaska and he has to go to an outhouse.
Yeah.
Oh.
She built her own house and wow.
Well, now by comparison, I feel quite warm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's cold. All right. Well, let's see if we can get back on track with what we're talking about here, because what we're talking about is applying the law of attraction in our daily lives as deliberate creators. And I think I was kind of allowing us to go off on the tangent there because it gives us a little time to think about what questions we want to start with. So now that we've had a little time to think about it, Tom, I'm going to go to you. Have you thought of the first question of the day for us to talk about?
Yeah. Yes, Walt. We have a question today from our listener in Poughkeepsie.
Poughkeepsie.
Leonard Nimoy asks.
I can't laugh today, otherwise it starts a coughing fit.
Sorry.
Oh no!
I'm not trying to be funny. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. If this thing called the universe and source has always got my back, and I can trust it to orchestrate my life, why do I ever have problems?
Interesting question.
Does it always have my best intentions in mind? And can I really trust that my life's unfolding just fine all the time?
I feel like the universe has you wherever you need to be at the exact moment you need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's a negative or positive, that was an experience that you were meant to experience, and it happened for a reason. So yes, the universe always has your back.
So in a way, you can really kind of relax.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be okay one way or the other, even if you're going through difficult times.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of cool. What do you think, Walt?
Source energy is an interesting thing. And I say that because it is both energy and love and life. It's all of those, all in one thing. So the idea of source energy having my back, or the universe having my back, is the idea that there is a life form, or perhaps a collection of life forms, which I think is more accurate, that has my back. And I think there's actually quite a bit of evidence to support that. So, I mean, experientially, I think that's what you were talking about, Alyx. Experientially, we know that, yeah, things tend to work out. There are times when I say to myself, I really wish that the universe wouldn't wait till the last second to deliver what the thing is that I'm looking for, but it does tend to do that. And when it happens over and over again, then that's when I have to do a little bit of internal examination and ask myself, okay, well, if it keeps happening over and over again, maybe that's me. Maybe that's my thought process. Maybe that's my expectations. And unfortunately, I find that that's true. So once again, it's, oh, geez, it's on me again.
Yeah, all those guys are doing their job, and you're not. You know, what's up with that?
Just let it in, damn it.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, that's the way I kind of look at it. That it's on me in the sense that I am the person creating my own life, but I also have a cheering section that has my back and helps to deliver things to me, even when I am putting up resistances. It tries to. I mean, my guardian angels or spirit guides or whatever you want to call them, the people who are on the non-physical side giving support to me, are often trying to do it in ways that kind of get around all the little blocks I've got in place that I didn't know I have in place necessarily. You know, they call it the path of least resistance, and sometimes that path of least resistance kind of plays out as the universe knowing, the way you said, Alyx, was what that they know what's best for you, or a source. I forget how you said it, but that's.
I said that you're in the right place at the right time. You know,
okay, all right,
wherever you need to be. Yeah.
Well, that's essentially the same concept. The concept that no matter all the different ways that you have set yourself up to not get what you want, the universe still tries to find the easiest way to get it to you, and they can show up in unexpected ways. So, yeah, I think that's what happens. What do you think, Tom?
Do you think? Well, I think that there's some kind of almost like, I don't know if the word magic comes into my mind, but there's some kind of a magical process going on where this whole creation is somehow there's somehow almost like there's like a joke, the tragic joke,
Okay,
built into the whole thing that really it's not as serious as we think. And if we really could see it from that perspective, like if we immediately died in the next second, like would we immediately know that everything was really okay all along, and that all of our tragedy was misplaced illusion? You know, and I kind of wonder that it's this whole thing of free will. I think that's what it comes down to. Like how much is, if Source is orchestrating everything, and Source is this infinite, all-knowing, all-loving force, then why would I ever worry about anything? You know, I mean, yeah, we get this conditioning that I guess it's bred into us to worry or to be afraid or to be concerned or to get angry, but it's weird. It's like, maybe it's just not necessary, but we're slowly learning that it's not necessary. I don't get it. You know, like why would it be difficult? You know, other than the fact that the lessons we're learning are part of this whole 3D process of being here, and so it's a good thing. It's like the school of life. You know, we're in some kind of a classroom here. But
classroom, okay.
Well, you know, it's like why is there mystery about anything? You know, why don't we seem to know? Whereas these guys we call source, all our ancestors and all those in the other unseen realm, supposedly can see, what's happening, what we need to do, and can intervene when we need intervention. And yet somehow our vibration is so important in the whole thing. But we're the ones always seeming to try to learn to get our act together so that we don't suffer. It's a funny game. It's like, what? Why is it that way? But
it's true. I mean, we have an ongoing experience where it seems so often, particularly to those of us who don't understand anything about law of attraction or deliberate creation, to the vast majority of people, it seems like we're all kind of like boats floating on a water aimlessly in no particular direction, and we're all kind of hoping something good's going to happen, but in the meantime we're paddling like crazy. That's pretty much what the life experience is for most people. And what we as deliberate creators are trying to learn to do is to marshal our thoughts and marshal our attention so that we can be moving in the direction we really want to go into, and to do it as effortlessly as we can, and trying to learn at the same time, like you said, Tom, to avoid I forget the word you used, but avoid the negatives, avoid the fears, avoid the, just take our minds off of all that stuff. Avoid the suffering. I think that's the word that you use.
Suffering.
Yeah. Avoid the suffering. And that is more about mental gymnastics than anything else, I think. Joel has often talked about the difference between suffering and struggling. Struggle being a good thing, suffering being a not necessary thing. Because with struggle is when we do our best growing. Struggle is when we have the biggest improvements happen in our lives. So even though we're going through the struggle, which is pretty miserable, we end up with a fabulous result at the end. But suffering is where we just we endure the pain, but we don't actually take steps to get out of the pain. So we just stay there, which is pretty miserable. It's not fun.
Yes.
It's not fun.
Yeah, we have the option to stay in the pain somehow, and that's what's weird. I guess it's something about being on the earth, but I really don't know what it's like on the other side. Like how much those beings experience something that could be called suffering. But according to what I hear from beings like Abraham, that there isn't that suffering on that other side.
Right.
But I've heard from people who travel out of their body that there is suffering on the other side, and I really don't know what to believe about that.
Well, we do know this,
but I do know
we do know this. We know that when we're suffering, we're in low vibration. We know that when we're not suffering, when we're feeling good, we're in a high vibration. And so when I think about what it's like in non-physical, well, non-physical is just a pure source energy state. Okay. There's not matter going on. Matter isn't really a part of that, or whatever matter seems to be there disappears pretty quickly after it's been created. It doesn't really stick around. That suggests to me a constant higher energy state. So that's why I tend to go with the first group that says that on the other side there is no low energy, there is no suffering. It doesn't really happen because you just can't be in a pure energy state and suffer. The only way you can do that is in what I would call the physical state, where vibration is slowed down. Because that's really what matter is. Matter is energy slowed down. So the only way to suffer is to engage in matter, I think.
Contrast.
Yeah.
Contrast. Everything in this realm requires that there be contrast. That there is light and dark, and there's sorrow and there's joy, and there's good and there's bad, as we call it. But like Alyx was saying, we're always in the right place at the right time, exactly where we're meant to be on our path. So what's good and bad about that? I don't know. It's a big question.
Siraj brought in his own comment. He says, I think believing strengthens your thoughts, and once thoughts strengthen, your vibration increases, and once vibration increases, you attract manifestations. Correct me if I'm wrong, he says. That pretty much sums it up, I think. I think he's got it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay, well, this has got it started. Alyx, you got a question for us?
I do not.
You do not? Well,
I've been dying on the inside all week. So,
well, then go back to Go and do not collect $200.
but
You
I
got to
want
start doing that.
$200.
But you want $200. Well, you got to come up with a question there. So, well,
I'll think of one.
I'll give you a little time. I'll come up with a question for us to
Okay.
address. I'm going to kind of carry it off of what Tom is talking about. Is it possible to live on Earth in the contrast without suffering? Is it possible to live in contrast here on Earth as a physical human being without suffering? Is that possible?
I think it might be. I think I've experienced it, seemingly for long periods of time. But does it eventually come around and I do experience suffering? I've experienced, yeah, eventually. But it seems like every day I'm working towards getting to the place where I don't suffer. And so it seems like, yeah, it's possible because I experience it all the time. But then it comes back around, there's these cycles of growth, like I remember Abraham was talking about that. Is once you get the thing that you wanted so much and you finally have that level of satisfaction, then the next desire brings more contrast to your life, and then you're back in a certain degree of angst that then you solve again, or you find your way through that, and then you have that satisfaction again, and then that elevated state brings another level of contrast, and so it's like it's the way growth takes place. But whether or not you suffer with it, they say once you get to step 5 of understanding of life, you don't suffer any longer because you see contrast as a necessary part of it all, and so you embrace contrast. When it comes along, you don't take it as a sign that you're screwed up or your life is messed up. Or, you say it, oh, more contrast. All right, bring it on. So maybe you can get to that place. And I know I'm that way with lots of things, but I'm not always that way. I'm learning.
Okay.
Step by step every day.
What's your answer,
Yeah.
Well,
That's
or
what
Alyx? Either one of you. Alyx, what's your answer?
I agree with you, Tom. I think that, well, I don't know. I agree to a certain point. I feel like everybody suffers, even a little bit, but it's for a reason, like to learn a lesson or whatever. Like everything happens for a reason or a season, and whether that be struggle or suffering, that's up to you to make the decision and how you come back from that.
Yeah, I like that last bit especially because when I asked the question, in my own mind, the answer was yes, you can live life without suffering. And the reason I say that is suffering is a decision. It isn't something that happens to us. It feels like it happens to us very often, but it's not imposed on us, is what I'm trying to say. It's not like we're forced to suffer. We could probably go to extreme examples and find somebody who was unjustly imprisoned by some horrible human being and abused every day and so forth, and say that they had to suffer. They didn't have a lot of choice. Okay, yeah, we can go to an extreme case, but for most people, no. For most people, it's a choice. Most of the time, most people get to decide whether or not they're going to suffer under any kind of adverse scenario. And because it's a choice, it means we can choose not to. It means we can choose to look at it differently. It means we can choose to experience whatever it is that we're experiencing without thinking about it as, oh, God, I have to go through this. This is awful. I'm so tired of this. I'm so frustrated. I'm so angry. I'm so pissed off. We don't have to go through that if we don't want to. It's up to us. We get to decide how we're going to react to a situation. So, there are always extreme exceptions to any rule, but I would say the rule is, no, you don't have to suffer. Yeah, you can go through life without suffering. It's purely a decision. And does it take time to learn how to activate that decision? How to carry it out? Yeah, it does take some time to learn that. But we can still learn it. And that's the good news as far as I'm concerned. We can learn it. We can learn to actually find the silver lining in any circumstance. We can usually find something good going on no matter what's going on. no matter
Mm-hmm.
how impactful, no matter how depressed we are about it, no matter how angry we are, no matter how chronic the situation seems to be, we can, if we choose to, we can find a way around it in our minds. And when we do that, we stop suffering.
And we can find a way through it, through our bodies, through our feelings. We can find a way to process the underlying emotion that we would call the suffering. We can go into the anger, we can go into the sadness, we can go into the fear, and find out that it's just energy that's moving in us, and it doesn't have to have a story attached to it that means catastrophe. And again, that's using the mind also. But I find that it's also this thing of allowing the feeling to be felt and be, realize the body has a message in that feeling. It's our emotional guidance system, and if we're feeling really angry or really devastated, that there's something that we can own and feel, and we can process it and reintegrate that, and then free that energy that was trapped in that anger or that sadness and that grief or whatever it is, and free it for then our own creative evolution. It no longer has to be this thing that we're trapped by, confined by this emotion that seems to overwhelm us. It seems to be much bigger than our ability to think our way through it, think our way around it. Because I find I can't use my mind to do everything. It's like it's a limited. Maybe it's not really limited, but I think I don't know. I've got to listen to the feelings. Put it that way. They seem really important to feel what I'm feeling in my body.
I think they work actually. I
yeah,
think
they have to. We're one organism.
Exactly. Yeah. If you try to use the mind without using the feelings, you're going at 1/4 speed. You're not getting the full advantage out of what you're capable of doing.
Yeah.
One of the stories that Joel Elston has told that I really like about suffering is a story of two men who got onto a plane flying to a destination together. They didn't know each other. They just ended up, seat side by side in the seats and ended up having a conversation. One of them was Polish. The other one was, I guess, American. And they get to talking, and the American is asking the Polish guy about his background and so forth. Oh, he's from Poland and so forth. And the American, who is a person who has been particularly schooled in world history and European history and knows about how Germany attacked Poland leading into World War II and the previous trials and tribulations that the Poles have had. They've been attacked and taken over numerous times by Russia and others and so forth. Was commiserating about how much the Polish people have suffered over the years and how he really admires them for their ability to come through despite all the suffering they've been put through. And the Polish guy takes offense at it. He says,
really?
No, that is not the case. We Poles have never suffered. We've had to endure, but we have never suffered. Which is an interesting approach.
I like it.
Interesting response. No, we're not. We're not going to suffer. Heck no. Yeah, we've had to endure a lot, but it's a decision to suffer. It's a decision not to suffer, and we decided no, we're not going to suffer. And apparently, that is a true story. That's not a made-up story. That actually did happen. Sounds interesting enough.
Yeah. No.
So I think about that a lot.
Yeah, I guess that's the attitude.
Yeah. Yeah. It's how are you going to look at it? How are you going to, whatever your circumstances? I mean, and I know people who are in some pretty rough circumstances right now. And even then, I know that in every single case, if they really, really want to, they can find a way to not suffer in it. They can find a way even to thrive. It's quite possible to do. It takes effort, depending on the level of discomfort or pain you're feeling. It can take quite a bit of effort. I mean, someone who's experiencing chronic physical pain, that takes a lot of effort to get your mind around.
Yeah.
But it still can be done.
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah. It's not always easy.
No, it's not. I've done it too. And boy, there are times when it feels like you're never going to break through. But if you stick to it, if you just keep trying, it's like pounding your head against the wall, so to speak. But if you just keep going after it, all of a sudden you get a breakthrough. And you say, whoa, what was that? What happened? The pain went away for a split second. How did that happen?
Yeah, sometimes it takes for me, a lot of relaxing into the pain and just sort of being mindful of it, where I go into it and I feel, okay, this is happening. What's it like? What's the qualities of it? Does it, how's this energy moving? Of course, sometimes it's overwhelming, and then, you want to get some kind of pain relief, Tylenol or something, some kind of a painkiller, because it's just too ridiculously difficult to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But by and large, I found that if I stay with the feeling, it will often transform by my giving it attention. That's the interesting thing about pain and suffering, is sometimes the reason they're calling so loud to us is because because I won't listen to them, or I won't be with it. I flee from it so quickly, and because I have made such a strong judgment that it shouldn't be there, or that it's too hard to endure. But if I slow down and I close my eyes and I just feel into it, maybe I put my hand on that place on my body that's hurting, and I just send it good. I send energy there. In a sense, I just notice it a whole lot. It'll often shift, and it'll sometimes completely clear up. I've had that happen a lot, especially like at 4 a.m. when I wake up with the pain and I spend time with it. It's amazing how many times it just totally goes away.
It's an interesting point, because very often when we're feeling any kind of pain, whether it's physical or mental, we're doing so largely because we're trying to shield ourselves and turn away from it and pretend that it's not there. And as you point out, sometimes you have to kind of stare it in the eyes, kind of stare it down a little bit. And when you do, you can learn things about it. You can learn things about what it's trying to tell you. A lot of people say that when you're feeling pain, it's a signal. It's a message that your body is trying to send to you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I ask it a lot of times. What do you want me to know? Like, why are you here? If you're part of me, and if I'm creating you, or what is it? Like, what do I need to understand to have resolution of this pain? Because they say it's the last place that something shows up is in our body of a message that we need to get. It's something that we need to understand, and that's why it finally shows up as a disease process, or finally shows up as a broken arm, or whatever it is. It's because something that we're not listening to, something that we need to learn, but it's trying to get our attention. The same way as if a person shows up in our life who's giving us hell, or really difficult person to deal with, it's like it's a reflection of something in us that we need to pay attention to,
Yep. Yeah, that's true. I'm reminded of what Abraham tells us on the subject. They talk about how whenever we're feeling a negative emotion of some kind, it's invariably because our inner being, my inner Walt, as I like to call it, my inner Walt always views everything going on in my life in a positive way, from a positive perspective of some kind. And when we're feeling a negative feeling, it means that literally we are in disagreement with what our inner being is feeling. We're feeling different. We've come to a different conclusion. We're thinking about it differently, and so we experience it as a negative feeling. And when I look at it that way, then I realize what we're really doing every time that we feel negative about something, whether it's just physical pain or something that's unpleasant in our lives, or something that's not working out right, or frustrations or angers or whatever it might be, we are in essence going against whatever the flow of the universe is sending our way. We're saying, no, I don't want that. No. And it's our no that is making us feel miserable. So once again, we get to choose. We don't have to suffer if we don't want to. We just need to change the perspective. Now, it's not always easy to know what to change the perspective to. That's where the challenge can come in. You have to know where to change it to. That's where you have to get better at. That's what I've been working on, learning on how to kind of connect inside. Where, okay, so what does feel good? I know what doesn't feel good. Now what does feel good?
Yeah.
Or journaling and looking or asking for a dream that'll show me what is it I need to learn from this situation. Or going to a coach or a counselor, a therapist, and looking into it, find out what is this thing all about? Why am I stuck in this place I've been stuck for 10 years. It's like you finally can unravel that and see, oh, this is a deep old wound in me that I've never really faced and acknowledged, and finally I'm going to face it and acknowledge it. And sure enough, then movement starts happening and the stuckness goes away and we find ourselves in a brand new day and things changing. And yeah, all of it's possible. And journaling, that's one reason I journal, because I go sit down with something that's bothering me and I start to try to take it apart, like what is it that I'm doing here? How is it that I'm thinking, and how could I be looking at this in a completely different way? But sometimes there's a feeling thing going on, and I can journal as much as I want and I won't get to the feeling, the feeling has to be felt. I had a session yesterday with a therapist, and man, so many changes happened in that session by just going into the feelings and, really seeing what was going on in my body and just going through it and watching the whole process. And I literally watched it change in my body. This really intense feeling in my abdomen finally moved down into my pelvis area, and when it did, it mellowed out in a really interesting way. And when it mellowed out and went down into the pelvis, then another energy moved up into my chest and my throat, and it was like this hollow tube that opened up that was like a light summer rain, and all this intensity that had been in my abdomen became diffused into everything from my pelvis up to my neck, and I felt so much better. It was like it all felt integrated. But it took a whole hour-long session to get there. But it was a process, and it was intense process. But just by staying with it and watching the energy, it sort of did its thing and reintegrated it in me. And I think that's one way that change happens. It happens in a pre-verbal or non-verbal way. Sometimes it's not all done with our heads, I don't think. I think a lot of it is done in the body. The body is incredibly wise. And it's I love that some people say the body is your subconscious. The body is your unconscious. And if you listen to it and feel into it, you'll get all the answers you need from your body itself, without even having to have an understanding of it. You don't have to have an intellectual understanding in order to change.
Right. Although it's certainly helpful sometimes to understand something about what modern research is discovering about how the body works. Like, for instance, the idea that the mind and the body, the brain and the heart are heavily interconnected, and that so many there are actually more neurons in the heart than there are in the brain, which is kind of mind-boggling. Right.
And they're finding the same thing about the intestines. That there's tons of brain cells, so to speak, in the intestines. And so when you have a gut feeling about something, now they're proving even neurologically that it makes sense. That your gut feeling is, and that's where. And then I've read a thing recently that said that they're finding these neuronal cells exist throughout the entire body. And so maybe it is not confined to the heart and the guts and the brain. It's really we tend to divide everything up. Ever since science started to break things down into parts, but really these are holistic systems that were created in a completely beautiful way to all work together, and the dividing it up is sometimes where we get confused. We're trying to put things into boxes that don't belong in boxes.
Yeah, that can happen for sure. Okay, Alyx, you've had a little time. You got yourself a question yet? That you can
I do.
Talk about? Okay. Hit it.
Okay, so speaking of, energy in the body, where do you feel that Reiki and law of attraction coincide?
Wow. This is where I'd love to have a Reiki master talking, because I feel like I'm reaching outside of my field, so to speak, because I don't know a lot about Reiki. I know Reiki is about energy, but I really don't know a lot about it. I guess that's got to be my answer. The overlap is that it's energy, and law of attraction is about vibrational energy, the energy of vibration and source energy. being influenced and controlled by the thought process of people focusing their minds and focusing their attention on stuff. Well, Reiki then, because Reiki is all about energy and energy flow, Reiki also has to be about, to some degree, focusing energy, focusing a thought on the energetic body, and trying to help unblock. I'm talking based on some basic concepts Mike McEwen has told me, because he's a Reiki master. Just trying to unblock blocked flows within the body. So in that sense, there's a definite overlap. It's an energy overlap. But beyond that, I couldn't tell you. I have just reached the end of my understanding of Reiki. So, how about you, Tom? Do you know anything about Reiki?
Well, I know enough to realize that it's simply the acknowledgement that energy is like you say, it's a vibrational force, and if you put your intention into that place of, number one, saying that I have a free will that I'm directing in this direction for this good intention, for this healing, and you also allow, you trust that the universe is, that energy is meant to flow in a clean, healing way, in a way that is, things are already healed, and you're acknowledging the cohesiveness. You're acknowledging the cohesiveness of life, that it's like how the whole body hangs together so well into organs, and over 100 trillion cells cooperating in every second. Well, then, Reiki is just saying, I'm putting the energy in that cooperative place, and therefore there is a power in directing energy. There is clearly a power in doing that. I mean, if Qigong masters can heal, change things 4,000 miles away, when they're in a lead-lined chamber at Stanford University, and there's another lead-lined chamber in Philadelphia where there's 6 little petri dishes of cancer cells, and the guy in Stanford says, we want you, Qigong master, to kill all the cancer cells in Philadelphia in the lead-lined chamber there, from the lead-lined chamber you're sitting in Stanford, and the guy can do it instantly. It's like, well, then what is what is energy? That's Reiki right there at a distance.
Yep.
How about you, Alyx? What do you want to say about it?
I believe that they're one and the same. I agree with both of you that it's mainly about concentrating energy where you need to focus it. So, yeah, that's basically it.
But it's incredibly powerful to do so.
Yeah, it is.
Have you guys seen the video that came out of China, where there was the woman who had the huge tumor? And they brought
no.
I don't remember what were the experts. They were not medical experts. They were experts of
They were Qigong masters.
Were they Qigong masters? Is that what they were?
Yeah, the same thing.
Yeah, and they had an ultrasound monitoring the abdomen of the woman, and you could actually see, as the Qigong masters were doing their stuff, you could see the cancerous portion shrink, and then disappear.
Yeah,
on a live
ultrasound. Crazy.
I mean, that was just insane. I'd never seen that before.
Well, Lynn McTaggart.
Yeah.
And she's this journalist who's written a number of books about the power of quantum physics, and she's now going around the world putting on her big, what do you call performances? Well, conventions where she'll have like hundreds of people in a room, and she'll have them concentrate on an image on a computer screen of a live experiment taking place in conjunction, say, with a experimenter at the University of Arizona who works with paranormal kind of stuff, and they'll have like a plant on the right and a plant on the left, and they want to change something with the leaf on the plant on the right, and the one on the left is maybe that's the double blind, one that
The
they're not going to
control.
put their attention, the control, and
Mhm.
and they'll get these people in San Diego to change, or in, back east somewhere to change this leaf of this plant in Arizona. These 800 people in the room they can literally watch in real time as the people in that room concentrate on changing that leaf in a certain way, and they'll watch it happen. And she's doing this all over the world with more things than leaves, and
Mhm.
proving scientifically, they're doing these studies to prove that the power of the mind. And when they do those same studies using Reiki masters, or Aikido masters, or Qigong masters, they can get even quicker and more powerful results because those people are trained to use their mind that way.
Right.
So it looks like if all of us would train to use our minds to send healing energy, that all kinds of things could be changed, including the weather. And so there's like a lot of possibilities exist that we don't realize that we have.
I can't
Powers.
remember what the website is, but Lynn McTaggart has at least one, maybe two websites that update every single week with who the latest group of people are that they're using their entire community to help heal. And these are people who have been through, they're going through like stage 4 cancer, and they have these obscure medical conditions that are extremely debilitating, and people who have a short time to live and so forth. And they're using all this group energy to help these people heal. Now, I don't know what the actual success rate is. I haven't seen anything published about that. But for those who are interested, you can actually go to these sites and sign up and say, yeah, I'm going to be a part of the next healing, which usually happens, I think it happens 2 or 3 times a week. They have them every single week.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, she talks about it in her book, The Power of Eight.
Right.
Right. It's all about, how small groups of 8 to 12 people can get together and do this kind of work and really cause true healing to take place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely the future.
Well, the future is in the present, apparently.
Yes, well, of course, it's never really, there's never really such a thing as the future or the past. They're always existing right now, for the way I understand it.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a confusing concept, but the way I like to remember it is usually we talk about it in the context of the subconscious mind, but it doesn't even have to be there. Whenever we think about the future, we're doing so now. So we're really in the now.
Right.
And when we think about the past,
Yeah.
we're doing so now. So we're really in the now. Even though we're thinking about it, maybe we're even being influenced by what we remember about the past. But nevertheless, we're actually doing it right now.
Yeah, and her experiments have shown that if you get a group of people and they think about changing something in the past, they can actually go back and find the results changed in the records of that thing.
That's where my mind just goes, what the hell just happened?
I know. That one is like, what?
Say what? Say that again?
Yeah. So that's why you can change the history of what you think happened to you when you were a little kid, and that kind of stuff. You don't have to, continually tell the story. Well, this is what happened, and therefore it's locked in time, it's locked in space, and I am therefore the victim of that. And I've got to deal with the struggle in my life because that's the way it happened. And you keep telling that story over and over again. You just keep reinforcing in the present that that's real. But there's a whole other way you could do it. You could tell a story that's completely different about your past and alter the way you are now in the present. And that's a whole fascinating area too to play with.
Yeah. I hadn't actually
That
heard
reminds
of that.
me of what we were talking about on Wednesday about the difference between imagining and lying.
Say more. What's the connection they're seeing?
Telling, he's saying, talking about telling yourself that certain things didn't happen in the past, or
Recreating it.
Recreating a different story for your history or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that reminds me of lying versus imagining.
So do you still, after our conversation Wednesday and in light of what we're talking about today, do you see a difference between imagining and lying?
I mean, I guess, to a point, because like sometimes, lying is in the negative. Like it's a bad thing. Like you're lying to deceive someone or, but if you're doing it to, I don't know. That's a difficult question.
Well, I didn't mean to stump the piano.
No. You definitely stumped me. Yeah.
What do you think, Tom? Is there a difference between imagining and lying?
Imagining and lying? I don't ever think of it as lying. I don't know. I don't believe in lying, I guess, in that sense. If you're imagining, you have the freedom to do that as much as you want. I mean, where was the lying come in? This sounds like a moral judgment or something.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where I was going to go with it. Lying always involves a moral judgment, and it involves an intent to deceive.
Well, it also involves the belief that the thing that happened was locked in stone, doesn't it? I mean, it's like if you're, I don't know. I mean, you'd have to give an example to me, and for me to understand that question better. Do you have an example, Walt?
Can I give you an example? Well, let me first give you an outline of what we talked about on Wednesday without going into a lot of detail. But the gist of it is, whenever we are doing deliberate creation, imagining, in a sense, if that thing is not currently real, in that sense, it's similar to telling a lie. The lie is a misrepresentation of what's going on in reality. So the question then becomes, what is... There's an apparent similarity between lying and imagining. What's the difference between the two of them? Is there a difference between the two of them? And I think you touched it. I think the difference is it's a moral difference, or perhaps an intention difference. What are you intending to do? If you're intending to simply create for yourself, I don't see that as lying. I see that as imagining. But if you are trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes, if you're trying to convince them that something isn't true so that you can get something out of them, so that you can have some sort of an advantage over them or something like that, now you've moved beyond the realm of pure imagining, and you've gone into the realm of trying to deceive somebody else, trying to fake somebody else out, and that's where I think imagination becomes lying. But it's a little bit arbitrary. It's not there's not a clean line there. There's a gray area there.
No, my understanding is that every moment is brand new, and everything is being created again, over and over and over by our expectations, by our belief system, and the feeling that we've got going on in our body is keeping everything, whatever we think is happening. Like what is being actually determined second by second by second by second. So there's always the option of changing what is. So it's never, like Abraham always says, what is old news.
Yes.
It's like why science is always so confused, because it's always looking at what is and what was in order to try to prove something. Whereas in reality, the way creation exists, it's brand new every moment. There's nothing that can be, because it's all made of energy and it's all made of light, and there is no actual particles except what the observer decides is true. And so in that regard, every single second, the only reason that everything's being experienced the way it is because there's enough observers that are saying that's reality. That's what is. But everything is malleable, really. But I feel like, in a way, like we are all wizards who don't yet know our power. We're all Reiki masters and Qigong masters who don't know our power. And only a handful of us are studying to the degree that we're good at it, and we know how to change matter to where you could change 6 petri dishes, instantly from 4,000 miles away, or 3, whatever. How does that happen? It's like it's that a person's ability to believe and send that energy that could change something like that. So everything is that malleable. And if we all believe that, then it'd be a different world.
Would it?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Donald Trump believes that things can be changed instantly just by saying it. And he gets away with it a lot. he keeps saying something's real, and everybody goes, "Wait, no, it's not." And he goes, "Yes, it is." And it doesn't matter if it isn't at all. He just says so, and everybody's got to scramble and try to prove him wrong.
Yeah.
He keeps saying, no, that didn't happen.
It's interesting, too, how so often Donald Trump being the person who I'm thinking of that kind of leads me to this conclusion. So often we end up trying to imagine into existence something that we're afraid of, or it's based on something that we're afraid of. Because so much of what Trump, the president, talks so much about his wall that he wants to put up between the U.S. and Mexico, and it's purely based on fear, 100% based on fear, and he wants everyone else to share that fear so that they can share his vision of creating this wall as a way of blocking that fear. And when I look at it that way and state it that baldly, it becomes pretty evident that putting up the wall isn't going to do a darn thing for getting rid of the fear. The fear is going to continue. Because you're building up this fear, So the wall's not going to help at all.
You're also building up. I think he's also building his sense of that he's the great leader, and he wants to have this ego gratification that he made a decision, and everyone will look back at him and go, "You were so right. Oh my God, you were the wise president," and it'll go down in history. And so you're also supporting that, like the need for his ego to be inflated, It's like, so, hey, have our listeners have anything that they?
Our listeners have been really quiet. I think they're listening, but they've been sharing a few thoughts. Siraj shared a few thoughts about suffering. He says suffering is a part of life. You'll get a scratch a bit from suffering, but at the end you'll be polished. And he also said that Tai Chi raises your vibrations. But no, for the most part, they're pretty quiet today, which is a little unusual. Maybe they're tired. I don't know. Whatever it is.
Maybe I gave them my cold.
You gave me your cold? No.
Yeah.
The only way that happens is if they accept it. That's what it is.
Facts.
Yeah. So let's see. We've got about 12 minutes left. 8 minutes left. So we got time for one or two questions in here. Tom, you got a second question for us?
Yeah, I had a few questions. Let's see. How do you know you're following the right? Well, I guess we sort of answered this. How do you know you're following the right path at any given moment? And is there such a thing as being on the wrong path? But we talked about that, how in a way, you're always at the right place at the right time doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like if I'm going through something, it's very hard for me to sometimes accept the fact that I'm not, quote unquote, wrong in my thinking, like I'm going in to get checked for the possible problems with my prostate gland, and it's really easy for me to think that my fears about that are wrong, or that I don't want to have those fears, and so it's like there's a right way and a wrong way to think about that. But I guess it's not really right and wrong in terms of morality. It's whether or not I'm serving my own best interest or not to think a certain way. But I don't know if that's really a question for you guys. Do you have any thoughts on what I just said? Or
so broad, I'm not even sure where to begin. You got any answers there, Alyx? I got.
I'm going to refer back to what I said earlier about the universe having us where we need to be at the exact right time. So I don't think there is. I mean, I guess you could feel good or better when you're on the right track, but I don't think there is a right track. Like I said, you're where you're supposed to be.
Is there a thing of like if you feel good, you're on the right track, and if you feel bad, you're on a track that's not going to serve you as well? I mean, will your life always work out if you always ask yourself, well, what feels better? What feels better? What feels better?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. In fact, I like to refer to the movie The Secret, where Neil Donald Walsh, the author of Conversations with God, was one of the presenters, and he talked about how we have this question, and they actually show an old style blackboard behind him. He says it's like there's this blackboard in the sky, and they have a blackboard against a sky background. And as he's talking, there's an invisible chalk that's writing on the chalkboard, on the blackboard. And he says, the blackboard says, Neil Donald Walsh, a handsome guy who, and then there's an underline, and that underline is supposed to represent what you're supposed to be doing with your life. Except that there's no blackboard in the sky, which means that your life is, in your right direction is whatever you say it is. And I love that. I love that. There is no outside direction saying this is your right path. It's all inside. You're the one who gets to decide what your right path is. For me, my right path is whenever I'm feeling good. I'm not on my best path when I'm not feeling good. And so I'm eager to do whatever I can, to take whatever steps I can take in order to get myself back on my right path. The one that's right for me. The one that feels best to me.
And yet when you're not feeling good, it's also your system is giving you a message.
Yes, like we said before.
Yeah, and you're not wrong for. I mean, in fact, that message can be a very powerful thing that'll lead you to a more holistic way of living your life, a more fulfilling way of living your life, because you acknowledge that, wow, I don't feel good. Why don't I feel good? And then you start looking at that and you own it, instead of just obliterating it or trying to run away from it. You accept it. You make peace with it, and then transformation can take place in a holistic way. You've integrated it rather than fled from it.
So the question you're raising is, did I ever really leave the right path? Was I, even when feelings went wrong, was I still on the right path?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And how you dealt with that could either cause it to be repressed and then have to show up later again in a stronger way, or you actually process it and it doesn't, and then it's gotten the love it needed, and it doesn't have to show up by rearing its ugly head again. It's because it's been listened to, And I think that's the important thing with law of attraction, is to not spiritually bypass the messages that our body's giving us. There's always beautiful intentions behind everything that's showing up, but sometimes we have to sit back, close our eyes, and say, well, what is this thing trying to tell me? If this is, if I'm feeling so depressed, or if I'm feeling so sad, what is it that I need to listen to here? Instead of, how can I get happy? How can I get happy? How can I get happy? So it's a dilemma. I wonder about, like how quickly do you flee something that seems like a difficult emotion to try to just cover it over with, I'm going to go watch a funny movie, or I'm going to go outside and go for a walk because I can't stand to feel this way. And it seems, well, of course you go outside and go for a walk, because why sit there and feel horrible?
It's interesting. You're describing that as if it were choice A or B. To me, it's both. To me, I mean, I don't really want to just go take a walk and never actively look at what the thing is that I'm dealing with.
Right. Okay. What I'm just thinking that sometimes I have done that. I mean, I think people sometimes do. They just want to obliterate the thing that's bothering them by, just changing everything in the way they think and changing their activities so that they don't have to face the thing that's bothering them. But you're saying that, you embrace both.
Yeah. I mean, I think that facing the thing is part of how you change your thinking about it. Because otherwise you don't know which direction to face. If you don't know what the thing is, how do you know where away is? Which direction is away if you don't even know what the thing is?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So of course you have to look at it to some degree, and I agree that
make peace with it.
Yeah. The more closely you look at it, I mean, I think actually the harder part is not so much looking at it; it's trying to understand what it's telling you. To me, that's the harder piece. Just trying to get an idea of what the message is. And until I get the message, until it's clear to me what that message is, that's when I feel my greatest frustration. That's when I'm suffering the most. That's when I'm not enjoying it at all. That's the part that's miserable. And so sometimes I will take that walk. Sometimes I will take the steps to get away. But ultimately, I do want to know what the message is so I can process it and let it go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is the most important part, because letting go, that's how I get back to that happy state that I want to be in.
All right.
Yeah. So, well, okay, good. This has been good conversation. That was another hour filled up with this was some very esoteric philosophical stuff. It's always different every single show, but this has been good. So thank you guys very much. And Alyx, I will talk with you next on Tuesday, I believe.
Tuesday. Yep.
Tuesday afternoon. And Tom, we'll talk to you next Friday. Tom's going to have a whole bunch of new questions set up for us next week, right?
Oh yeah.
You can count on it, right?
Try to get some that maybe are more practical and not as esoteric. Who knows? I like philosophical stuff.
Yes, we got that impression, and it's good stuff too. It really is. So thank you guys both very much. Thanks to our live stream audience. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.